Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today I'm going to be playing another sealed event of Shadows Over Innistrad Remastered, Week 2 with the Fatal Flashback cards. This is the exact sealed format that will be taking place for Day 1 of the Arena Open this weekend, so I figured we'll get another bit of practice in for that sealed event. So without further ado, let's bust open our packs and see what we get to build with today. Alright, we've got a very sweet rare here, Sigarda Heron's Grace. This is a 5-mana 4/5 with flying, gives all of our humans and ourselves hexproof, and allows us to exile cards from our graveyard to create 1/1 human tokens. So a nice big flyer that can start spitting out an army of 1/1s, probably the strongest rare in the sealed pool, but there is also a Startled Awake in blue, which is 4 mana to mill someone 13 cards. You can then spend 5 mana to bring this back from your graveyard onto the battlefield transformed as a 1/1 with Skulk, which means it can't be blocked except by creatures with 1 power. And if that 1/1 manages to deal damage to our opponent, we get to put it back in our hand and mill our opponent for another 13 cards. So if we get to recast this one time in limited, that pretty much always means our opponent's entire deck is gone. So these two rares, incredibly powerful cards, definitely the best rares in the sealed pool. Following up in third place is Sage of Ancient Lore. This is a 5-mana creature with power and toughness equal to the number of cards in our hand. When it enters the battlefield, it draws a card, so it immediately replaces itself. And if it flips to the backside, then it is a Vigilance Trampler with power and toughness equal to the total number of cards in all players' hands instead of just ours. So it's not usually the largest creature in the universe, but the fact that it replaces itself with a card draw when it hits the board makes it quite a decent card. Then on to the weakest rares, we have Audric Lunarch Marshal, which can be really good with some support, but doesn't do anything on the board by himself. By himself, he's a 4-mana 3/3, but if you have a creature with First Strike, Flying, Death Touch, Double Strike, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Skulk, Trample, or Vigilance, then at the beginning of combat you give your entire field the same ability. So can be pretty good if we have enough flyers in the deck to where Audric just makes our whole board flying every turn, or a few lifelinkers in the deck, giving our whole board lifelink every turn, but Audric definitely requires some work. Otherwise, if it's your only creature on board, or if you have a lot of creatures in your deck that don't have any keyword abilities like that, then Audric will often just be a 4-mana 3/3, which is a pretty bad deal. So Audric definitely requires some work, can be really strong, can also just not do much. And then the final two rares are the worst ones in the sealed pool that are practically unplayable in limited. They're much more cards designed for constructed. There's Eldritch Evolution, 3 mana, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a creature with mana value X or less, where X is 2 plus the sacked creature's mana value. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. If you have a lot of creatures with good abilities when they die or when they're sacrificed, then it can be okay, but for the most part, this is just a combo piece for constructed-oriented decks, because usually you're just going to be 2 for 1ing yourself. You're sacrificing a creature and discarding this spell in order to turn it into just one slightly bigger creature. Not super worth it unless you have a really important creature to search out, or you have creatures with good death abilities like the 3-mana 2/2s that draw a card when they die. And then last but certainly least, we have Sigarda's Aid. This card does pretty much nothing in limited, makes it so our auras and equipment can be cast at instant speed, and when we play equipment, they automatically attach to a creature we control. So even if we open up the max amount that we could have in a sealed pool, we'd have maybe 4, maybe 5 equipment, where this just really isn't worth a deck slot. This card, another card, very, very good and constructed. The kind of joke there is that there are cards like Colossus Hammer that's a 1-mana equipment that has an equip cost that costs a ton of mana, but that equipment does give the equipped creature like +10/+10. So with Sigarda's Aid, you can now play that Colossus Hammer at instant speed and just give something +10/+10 permanently out of nowhere. So Sigarda's Aid, really strong card and constructed, but doesn't really do anything in sealed. So those are our rares today. Pretty cool stuff. Sigarda, Startled Awake, Sage of Ancient Lore are cards I'm pretty interested in trying. Maybe Audric does some stuff here. But we'll go ahead and take a look at the entire sealed pool now, see what kind of strategies look the most supported when it comes to our commons and uncommons. Starting off, as I always do, we'll take a look at our multicolored and colorless cards. This is where we could see some signpost uncommons and some build-arounds to see if there are any directions that we really want to keep in mind. We, of course, have that Sigarda for green-white, so if our green and white are good, definitely keep that in the back of our head. But then Ride Down is kind of just a pretty average removal spell, not the biggest reason ever to head into red-white. When it comes to colorless cards, I like to take a peek at those to see what we have access to in terms of mana fixing and cards that we could play in every deck. And we do have some mana fixing, double Terrarian, that can get 2 mana in any combination of colors, as well as draws a card, and a Wildfield Scarecrow, which can grab us 2 basics of any kind. So we've got some mana fixing if we're going to go for a more 3-color Delirium-focused deck, because all of our mana fixing also puts an artifact in our grave, which helps hit Delirium, Delirium being a mechanic that wants a bunch of different card types in our graveyard. So if we want to do, green, blue, black, white, any of those like green-black sort of Delirium builds, we've got the good mana fixing for those archetypes. Or if we just have really powerful cards in 3 different colors, we can use these as general mana fixing as well. Outside of that, though, not the most playable colorless cards, Magnifying Glass just always being a bit too slow, and Murderer's Axe, just, again, a little too high mana, a little too dirtily to be super worth it. So we're going to start looking at each color individually now, starting off with white, which looks like it has a pretty good count of cards in general in the color. Tons of creatures, good amount of non-creature spells. Definitely the support to play a white deck. The question is whether or not it'll be strong. So definitely don't want Sigarda's Aid. I don't think Strength of Arms is a very good combat trick unless you have good equipment, and our sealed pool only has 1 equipment, that Marauder's Axe, which is just not very good. So I'm not super into that. But we do have Griff's Boon, which is a great aura, giving something +1/+0 and flying, and getting around the downside that auras usually have, where if your opponent kills what you put it on, you're just down 2 cards. Well, with this, you don't really lose the Griff's Boon, you can keep replaying it from the graveyard and putting it on a different creature. So Griff's Boon is a great aura. Blessed Alliance, great removal on the defensive. Bound by Moonsilver, great removal, period. And Rally the Peasants could be good if we're tremendously aggressive, but for now we'll put it over in the side here. For the creatures, Sigardian Priest is a fine tapper, Cathar is a filler 2-drop. The Griffs are pretty filler at 3 mana, just a 3 mana 2/2 flyer, but with an Audric in the deck, I think we would want to play them just to up the amount of creatures we have that can work with Audric's ability. Shieldmate's fine, Spectral Shepherd is fine, Fiendbinder, bit dirtily but fine, same with like Reaper of Flight, Moonsilver. Nothing really, really good in white. Our best thing going on in white is Audric. We do have 4 flyers and 1 lifelinker, so there are some things to do with Audric here. And then we have a couple decent removal spells, but nothing incredibly exciting in white, it looks like. But it does look like an okay color, pretty average looking color there. Check out our blue now. We've got the Startled Awake, of course, for that Mill 13, one of the biggest bomb rares in the sealed pool. We've also got 2 Exultant Cultists, which are decent value plays, pretty good if we have ways to sack them. Tattered Haunter for a flyer, Fogwalker for a dirtily blocker, and Daring Sleuth. If we can make a lot of clue tokens, that could be solid. But we have 0 cards that investigate in blue, and I don't think we had any cards that investigate in white either. And those are the main colors good at investigating. There's some investigating in green as well, but yeah, we do not have the clue token support to make Daring Sleuth anything other than a 2 mana 2/1, which is pretty bad, so don't think we'd play that. Fogwalker's really filler. Essence Flux doesn't really do anything without a lot of spirits. Convolute's not a great counter spell. We do have Rise from the Tides. If we have a ton of good instants and sorceries, this can be a big win condition later in the game. But in blue, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we're going to play. So we'd need a secondary color with a ton of instants and sorceries. Probably red. Blue-red spells is usually where Rise from the Tides becomes good. But yeah, that's a bit awkward. Forbidden Alchemy is a fine impulse-style draw spell that fills the grave as well for Delirium or flashback abilities. And Double Drag Under are great tempo little bounce plays. So some good stuff in blue, but not a pretty high quantity of blue cards here. There'd be more of a support color than a primary. Checking out our black now. Don't love Gavnion Hollowed, Thraben Foulbloods, those are both really filler. Graph Rats does literally nothing, it's just a 2-mana 2/1 without a Midnight Scavengers in our sealed pool, so that's almost definitely getting cut. And Ghoul Caller's Accomplice, kind of slow, but it does give you decent value, 2/2/2s off one card. Then we have Sever the Bloodline, pretty great removal. 2 removal spells in 1 because of that flashback ability. Deadweight for a cheap removal spell. I don't think we'll be aggressive enough to use Bump in the Night as a burn spell. Borrowed Malevolence can be good at 3 mana escalated in combat sometimes. You can win 2 combats with this, where you attack with 2/2/2s, they block with, I don't know, a 2/3 and a 2/2 or something like that, and all of a sudden you can make it so you're killing both of their creatures while losing none of yours. So Borrowed Malevolence, kind of narrow. It's not always going to be incredible, but some board states, it becomes just a really big 2-for-1. I don't love Merciless Resolve, having to sack a land or a creature to draw 2. Pick the Brain. Not in love with that either. Kind of a slow discard spell. Yeah, Biting Range, just a controlling spell, and then Geese's Bidding for some zombies is whatever. Most of our black is pretty dang filler, but then we do have Sever the Bloodline, Geese's Bidding, and Deadweight being pretty good. But yeah, again, not a super spicy color. Haven't seen any color just really stand out yet. Moving on to red now. For our creatures, we have Embry Wolf, very much not a fan of the card. If your opponent has no creatures on board, you do get to Fire Breathe, dump a bunch of mana into this, and deal a bunch of damage to them. But if they have any 2/2s on the board, then not only is this just being your 2-mana creature trading off into their 2-mana creature, but you have to spend 2 mana for it to even trade in the first place, so it's very mana inefficient if it gets into combat with other creatures at all. Ravenous Bloodseeker is a good Madness enabler. Scourge Wolf can be good if we can hit Delirium, and even just a 2-mana 2/2 first strike's not horrible, even if it is a bit hard to cast. Conduit of Storms is kind of nice. 3-mana 2/3 gives us some mana and turns into a 5/4 later. Alpac Wolf is fine with some other wolves in the deck, which we do have. Couple Insatiable Gorgers to work with the Madness stuff is fine. And a Pyrehound if we have a ton of good instants and sorceries, but I don't really think we do. We have the Rise from the Tides if we try to go blue-red Pyrehound shenanigans, but our red instants and sorceries aren't the greatest. Like, I don't really like these Rush of Adrenalines very much as just a +2/+1 combat trick. I do like Galvanic Bombardment and Fiery Temper as removal. Make Mischief as a creature. That comes with a little bit of a removal spell. Shreds of Sanity could be a fine recursion spell, picking up an instant and sorcery from grave. And then Tormenting Voice and Faithless Looting are fine draw spells in a deck that has a few Madness cards. So red might be the best color so far, just because it's got more stuff, like a little more creatures, a little more removal, but it doesn't feel good, in my opinion. It still feels average at best. So very much not the biggest fan of the sealed pool so far, but let's check out green. Maybe green will be absolutely phenomenal, and we can just go like green-white Sigarda stuff. We'll see. Moment of truth here. What do we have in green? All right, well, I will say the creatures look pretty phenomenal in green. Starting at 1 mana, we have 2 Gnarlwood Dryads, which as a 1 mana 1/1 Death Touch is already playable and limited. And if we hit Delirium later, they're ridiculous, a 1 mana 3/3 Death Touch. We have a Duskwatch Recruiter, one of the best uncommons in green. It can keep digging creatures out of our library with that mana sink ability. Alternatively, it just becomes a 3/3 at night that helps us cast other creatures. Hinterland Logger's fine filler. Not very good up front, but any time that it flips to the werewolf half, it's a pretty ridiculous deal. Noose Constrictor's a great card, flexible way to block flyers and get bigger throughout the game. Rabid Bite is solid removal. Travel Preparations is a completely busted aggro card if you're in green and white, because it's going to give you 4 power and toughness to spread as you choose among your board. You get 4 +1/+1 counters off this for 4 mana, which is really, really good. So very big fan of Travel Preparations. Bloodbrier's pretty filler. We don't have a lot of clue tokens in the sealed pool, period, so we just don't have a lot of permanents to sacrifice. That'll probably get cut. But Byway Courier's nice, a 3/2 that gives us a clue when it dies to draw us a card later. Shrill Howler is a solid card if we can flip it, get some hits in with it. It's also just hard to block in general. Pretty good with stuff like Travel Preparations, and Griff's Boon out of white to buff it up. Crawling Sensation is going to be too slow for this deck. It looks like we would be at our best as a green-white aggro deck. Crawling Sensation is much more for the Delirium kind of grindy decks that want to self-mill a lot, put a bunch of flashback cards in the grave, fill the graveyard to make the Delirium plays better. Not really what our green looks like it wants to do here. Eldritch Evolution as well, pretty slow. Wolfkin Bonds are pretty slow. A playset of Wolfkin Bonds kind of hilarious, but I don't think I'm that interested in it. At 4 mana, we have Intrepid Provisioner, which is fine filler, a 4 mana 3/3 trample. If we have a human on board, we buff it up for a turn. Pack Guardian is a great card if you have a land in your hand, and still fine if you don't. 4 mana for a 4/3 flash is okay. 4 mana for a 4/3 flash and a 2/2 wolf with flash is ridiculous and can completely swing a game. So that card's great. Obviously, we already talked about the Sage. It's going to be solid. And double Thornhide Wolf's an okay way to top off the curve. So really do like our green. I think our green is our strongest color. It's just got a lot of solid creatures here. Not a lot of spells, but the ones that we have are very good. Rabid Bite and Travel Preparations. So I am certainly going to take a look at the green-white Sigarda deck here. That looks like probably the best place to be. Could be a green-white Sigarda plus Audric deck also, although I don't think the Audric is doing too much. So we maybe even end up cutting the Audric in the end. We'll see. Alright, so first and foremost, we're definitely cutting Sigarda's Aid. Strength of Arms as well. Without any equipment, just 1 mana +2/+2. Not the most exciting. It's still playable. I don't really want to play Rally the Peasants without red mana, and I don't really want to splash in red just for that. We need to cut 5 creatures now. I like pretty much all of our green creatures except Intrepid Provisioner and double Thornhide Wolves are the most filler. So those are potentially on the chopping block. Let's see, we've got Sigardian Priest out of white, like that a good bit. Steadfast Cathar is a fine 2-drop to get aggressive early. Dawn Gryphs they're good with Audric, but just as a 3 mana 2/2 flyer that's not that exciting. Do like the Shield Mate. Spectral Shepherd is just a 3 mana 2/2 flyer with bonus text. So I have 3 mana 2/2 flyers. Probably cut some of them. I guess just for variety's sake, I'll cut 1 Dawngryph for sure, and then we just have 2 3 mana 2/2 flyers with no text. Seems fine with me. 4 more cards to cut. Well, if I have to cut 4 more cards, I'm probably cutting some 3-drops. I do have a lot of 2s, but one of them, the Sigardian Priest, is much more defensive card, so it doesn't really count for aggressive 2-drops to play on curve. I do think Steadfast Cathar is the weakest of the 2-drops, though, so I could consider cutting that. Consider cutting the Dawngryph and the Spectral Shepherd. If we end up cutting those, we're pretty much definitely going to cut Audric, because the only thing Audric is really doing in our deck is giving our whole board flying. I guess it could give our whole board Death Touch as well, but I don't see that being tremendously useful in combat that often. Because then, like, if our board is full of a bunch of 3/1s and 4/3s and 2/2s and stuff like that, and we give it all Death Touch, more often than not, we're just going to be attacking in and trading off with 3/3s and 2/2s anyway, that they would have traded with even if they didn't have Death Touch. So flying is by far the most useful ability to give our board. I guess giving the whole board Death Touch could be good if we get like 1/1 tokens out, but we don't really have any token production. So it could be helpful on blocks. And Audric does trigger on both attacks and blocks. We also have a reach creature to help on blocks. I genuinely just don't think Audric is that good. It feels like the vast majority of the time it's just going to play like an overcosted 4 mana 3/3 that doesn't do anything. But on the rare occasion that we do have a flyer out, on the really rare occasion that we have a lifelinker out, Audric could be pretty wild. I'm not super into the Fiendbinder. It does help you get an attack in, but it's really bad on the defensive. It doesn't block well with only 2 toughness, and even on the aggressive, a lot of positions your opponent's just going to have multiple 2-power creatures out pretty easily, and your Fiendbinder is going to die super fast. so not super into the card. Reaper of Flight Moonsilver as well. Bit overcosted if you can't hit Delirium pretty easily. I don't think our deck hits Delirium that often. More often than not, we're just going to have a creature in one sorcery engrave or a creature in one instant, something like that. So let's see, we get to cut 4 of the cards that I put in the side over here. How many humans did we end up getting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 humans are definitely in the deck. 4 mana for a 3/3 trample, give something +2/+2 is a lot better than 4 mana 3/3 blank, just no text. But on the occasions where Odric does have text, that text is real strong. And this is sealed. Sealed formats tend to get into a lot of board stalls, so I think I do like the idea of trying to win board stalls with Odric giving the whole board flying. So I think I'm going to keep Odric and some flyers in the deck. This way, when we slam down Odric, more often than not, give the whole board flying and just try to kill them in 2 swings. Something like that. I've got 6 cards set aside over here. We want to cut 4 of them. I think I'd rather keep... Well, because of Odric, I might rather have Reaper of Flight Moonsilver in here over a Thornhide Wolves. But I do want to put 1 more 5 mana card, have 3 of them in, I think. Seems fine to me. Put the 4-drop in as well, the Intrepid Provisioner, so we cut Fiendbinder. If we cut at least 1 Wolves, we'll put 1 of the 5 mana cards back in. And then cut the other 2, so we'll cut Steadfast Cathar. Put a 5-drop back in here. I guess I have Griff's Boon giving the board flying as well, so that's even without the Reaper of Flight. Five ways to give flying: Griff's Boon, Spectral Shepherd, Dawn Griff, Near Heath Chaplain giving Spirit Tokens, and Sigarda. Any of those out and Odric's giving the whole board flying. Sure, I'll cut the Reaper, play the Thornhide Wolves. A much better stat line just in terms of power and toughness. Yeah, this deck looks pretty legitimate. We even opened a green-white duel. That's nice. That could be very helpful. Double check everything that's not in the deck just in case the sorting by clicking the buttons ended up not showing us certain cards. But I'm not seeing anything in white that looks super good that we're not playing. Moving on to green. Nothing great in green that we're not playing. And to our multicolored and colorless, there's 1 blue-black duel we didn't see, but obviously we're green-white, we don't need the blue-black duel. The colorless cards are just mana fixers that we don't need in a 2-color deck, so yeah, this looks pretty good to me. I think we will call it a deck there. Alright, here we have a look at the completed deck for today. Just a pretty traditional green-white aggro mid-range sealed deck. Just a pile of good creatures in green and white, a pile of good spells to go alongside them. So starting off the curve, we have some Gnarlwood Dryads for 1 mana 1/1s with Death Touch. Moving up, Priests work as both creatures and sort of removal spells, tapping and locking down some non-humans. Duskwatch Recruiter is a great card draw engine with that mana sink ability. And then Hinterland Logger and Noose Constrictor are just solid creatures for the cost for getting aggressive. At 3 mana, we have Dawn Griff and Spectral Shepherd as just some flyers. Drogskull Shieldmate to get some surprise blocks in there, as well as maybe win combat with that +0/+1 effect. Byway Courier is a nice value play, giving us a clue token when it trades off. And Shrill Howler is a big, potentially scary creature that's hard to block. Pack Guardian is another surprise blocker. Intrepid Provisioner buffs the board when we play it. Near Heath Chaplain is a nice lifelinker that can replace itself with multiple spirit tokens, and where things start getting a little fancy here are with Odric Lunarch Marshal. This is going to give all of our creatures the same keyword abilities as all the other creatures that we control. So with Odric, if we have a Gnarlwood Dryad on the board, then our entire board will have Death Touch every combat. If we have one of those pretty filler 3 mana 2/2 flyers, then all of a sudden our entire board has flying on attacks and blocks. If we have Noose Constrictor, our whole board will have Reach on blocks. And if we have Near Heath Chaplain out, our entire board will have Lifelink on attacks and blocks. So a lot of pretty good synergies with Audric. If we don't have any of those on the board with the Audric, though, he will just be a 4-mana 3/3, which is not the most exciting. But again, with all those other cards, Audric could be pretty explosive. And then at 5 mana, a couple more rares. Sage of Ancient Lore, drawing us a card when we play it. Not going to be the biggest creature ever in this deck, because we are just an aggro deck, kind of dumping out our hand generally. But it's a good 2-for-1 value play, a creature that draws a card when it hits the board, and if it does flip to nighttime, it'll probably be maybe a 3/3 or a 4/4 Vigilance Trample. This might be one of the weakest cards in the deck again, because the best way for us to play this card is just once we hit 5 mana, just stop playing lands from that point on to try to keep it large. So the turn we played, it's not going to be very big, but from that point on, we can start just sandbagging, just holding a bunch of extra cards in our hand later to make it a decent-sized threat. We've got the filler Thornhide Wolves for a big creature at the top of the curve, and a Sigarda Heron's Grace, probably the strongest card in the deck, a big flyer that gives the rest of our board hexproof, or most of the board hexproof, as well as letting us spit out a bunch of 1/1s by exiling cards from our grave. So really nice curve of creatures, pretty consistent stuff, and a couple really powerful plays like Sigarda, like Audric at the right time, and Pack Guardian, stuff like that. And when it comes to our spells, a few good removal spells, Bound by Moonsilver and Rabid Bite, that we can use at any time, especially if we have a Death Toucher on board. That's going to help the Rabid Bite out a lot. And then Blessed Alliance is only on the defensive, but it does enough things that it's pretty great on the defensive. And then for some auras, for some ways to buff our board, we have Travel Preparations, putting 4 +1/+1 counters on our board, which is insane. This can help us get really aggressive, and Griff's Boon can keep coming back from the graveyard and giving one of our creatures flying, which is pretty strong and another way to help trigger the Audric. So really nice, consistent green-white strategy today. Pretty excited to see how it does, so without further ado, let's get into the gameplay. Alright, here we are for game 1. We've got a turn 1 Gnarlwood Dryad, Dawngryff on 3 into Audric on 4, so we could have that combo where our entire board gains flying. Try to win off that. So we'll keep the hand, see how it goes for us. Starting off with the Gnarlwood Dryad and passing the turn. Opponent starts with a Stone Quarry, that's the red-white dual land. We'll chip in for 1 damage then, pass the turn again. Alright, no 2-drop from them, no plays turn 2. Let's go ahead and hit for 1. Drop the Dawngryff and pass the turn again. And then we're just going to start doing some full squad flying attacks. And hopefully that's a way to close out the game. Alright, now if they Incendiary Flow the Dawngryff, then the board is not going to have flying. Let's hit for 1 with the Gnarlwood Dryad, drop the Audric and pass the turn. So now our entire board has Death Touch at least, which is something. Higher Hound from our opponent. Probably just tap out for Sage of Ancient Lore. It's only going to be a 3/3 right now, but that's okay. Can be bigger next turn. Could attack with everybody. They can't play any instants right now. They're tapped out. They would trade into either of these creatures. Well, I mean, they wouldn't trade into Audric. They would just lose to Audric, or they trade with Gnarlwood Dryad. Alright, so draw a card from the Sage. We hit a Pack Guardian. So we have Byway Courier, Pack Guardian, and Blessed Alliance available. Our opponent's down to 13. They have a Pyre Hound on the board now, which is really good with Make Mischief. They get a counter on the Pyre Hound, the Gnarlwood Dryad is dead, and they get a 1/1 Devil. Now they have a 3/4 Pyre Hound. They could double block Sage to kill it. Single block and kill Audric. I did just draw my flyer. We could just play that and hit for 6 in the sky. That does feel impressive. Let's go for that. Attack for lethal next turn. Attack for well over 7 damage. Yeah, they're just going to scoop it up. They're out of removal there. So Audric with the flyers is going to take a victory for us. That was one of the things I was a little sketchy about during the deck building, because I was like, well, whenever we don't hit the synergies with Audric, it's not going to do much, but when we do hit the flyers alongside Audric, that's actually kind of insane. Like, we just had a 3/3 and a 4/4 on the board, which couldn't attack super well into their board state, but just top decking a flyer is like, oh, I guess they all have flying now. We'll get a nice attack in for 6, and yeah, Hodrick really proven his worth game 1. So we'll start it off 1-0 as we head into game number 2. Here we are in game 2. Our opponent is on the play. They've taken 1 mulligan. I think I'm going to keep this hand. It's pretty top heavy, but we're on the draw to help hit lands. If we can make it to 4 mana, we've got a lot of stuff to do. If I'm stuck on 2, I can still play Noose Constrictor, Rabid Bite, their first important play, which gives me some time to draw more lands. I think it'd be pretty risky on the play, but on the draw, since we are going to draw before I play anything, giving us 1 more opportunity to hit a land here, I think it's fine. We did immediately draw another 5 mana card, but we have hit a land after that, so that is very helpful. We only need to hit 1 more land to be able to play the majority of the hand. Our opponent is on blue-black. No plays yet. Turn 3 for them. All right, did not draw a land this turn, so if we miss a land drop next turn, we don't get to play anything. This is not lovely. Opponent has a Forbidden Alchemy, a very good card to set up for late game. Fill that graveyard with a bunch of nonsense for Delirium or Flashback or any kind of graveyard mechanics, as well as putting a card into their hand here. And they are a 3-color deck, as they've milled a Spell Queller, Imprisoned in the Moon, and a Swamp. And there's an Ironclad Slayer. Pick up the Imprisoned in the Moon. Really good 2-for-1 value for them. And now it's basically like they didn't mulligan in terms of value. We did hit the 4th land just in time on turn 4 here. Play our 3/3 Trample. Or flash in a 4/3 during their end step. I'm not that excited about Pack Guardian until I hit another land. We've got no humans to buff with the Provisioner, though. Yeah, I'm not in love with any of our lines here. I guess I'll just play a Provisioner, get a 3/3 Trample on the board and pass. Thing in the Ice. As they cast instants and sorceries, they will be removing counters from that once it has 0 counters on it. Wow, that's the wrong land to hit here. RIP. As they remove counters from it, it will flip into a 7/8 that bounces the rest of the board back to hand. So they need to cast 4 more instants and or sorceries, but then that thing is going to destroy us. I could bind it by Moonsilver and then it can't transform. That's probably the play. Is this land bad enough to just play a Pack Guardian and discard it? No, because we've got multiple good 5 mana plays. We'll play that, and then if I draw another land, I'll discard it to Pack Guardian, which means this turn I guess I go for Bound on Thing in the Ice. Hope they don't have a Convolute. Alright, no Convolute. Send in the squad. Trade into the Slayer, hit for 3. Okay, trade into the Slayer, hit for 0. Wharf Infiltrator. It's got Skulk, but I can block it forever with this. Yeah, Skulk with Spontaneous Mutation. Pretty poor lineup of cards for them. Rough for them to draw those together. Can only afford to play 1 spell here, so we just try to play the best one. They've only got 1 card in hand that we don't know about. Got Imprisoned in the Moon and a blank, so we gotta just hope that's not a counter. Alright, it's not a counter. Sage of Ancient Lore is gonna hit the board. It's gonna give us that card. I'm gonna hold that for the Pack Guardian. Pass the turn. Yeah, we're in a pretty good position against a Wharf Infiltrator because I can just block it with Provisioner all day long. Humble the Brute. Alright, destroy the Sage of Ancient Lore. They get a clue token. Now, play Pack Guardian and Travel Preparations. Now that Sage of Ancient Lore is dead, I'm not super worried about holding the land. I still kind of want it for Pack Guardian, but could run it out. Yeah, I'll just play a Thornhide Wolves. I kind of want to get to a point where I have enough mana to play Pack Guardian, discard a land, and play Travel Preparations. Which means I need to hit one more land because I have to have 6 on board and 1 land in hand, because I don't really want to play Pack Guardian without discarding the land for another 2/2. Alright, Imprison in the Moon on Thornhide Wolves, and there we go, there's 6 mana. Seems good to me. So now we can Pack Guardian, discard a plains. Could also just play Hinterland Logger, just have a very big board state. Since I drew into that creature, we'll do that instead. Their board state is a 1/1 and a 1/2, so I don't really need +1/+1 counters to get attacking particularly well. They can block with 2 power right now. Silent Departure, their own thing in the ice to get rid of our Bound by Moonsilver. We'll just go ahead and Rabid Bite the thing now then. Crack the Clue to draw a card. Okay. Let's definitely Rabid Bite the thing in the ice. I don't have to deal with that. And then let's Travel Prep, make sure everything has at least 3 toughness here. So they can't double block and kill. And then we get to attack with everybody. They have no way to kill one of our creatures. All they can do is chump right now on board. Chump the 5/4. They're going to take 7 damage. They're down to 11. I'll pass the turn. I'll hold on to this land. There's a certain death to kill our 5/4 and drain us for 2 life. There's a Curious Homunculus, which is just a 1/1 for now, but it'll turn into a 3/4 very quickly. Not excited to see that. Yeah, it'll be pretty good for them to have a 3/4 on the board. They're down to 6. We get to play this Shrill Howler. Definitely transform it next turn. They could Silent Departure our token to kill it permanently, or they could Forbidden Alchemy to draw a card, or they could play whatever they top decked. Faithbearer Paladin is the draw, and that's a very good one. A lifelinker to get blocking with. Drogskull Shieldmate is also a pretty great draw. I need 1 more mana to flip the Howler and play the Shieldmate. It's kind of awkward. Love to be able to do both. Probably just attack with the Logger. They don't have the mana up for any instants here, so the Logger trades with something on board, which means probably Shieldmate to win the combat unless they like triple block or double block here. Alright, smart block from our opponent. They go for the double block to make sure we can't use any kind of tricks to still win. So we'll trade with the lifelinker, get that out of here. Yeah. Get the lifelink off their board. Play our land. And we can flip the Howler at instant speed. We can also play the Shieldmate at instant speed, so whichever one of those we end up wanting to do based on what they do here. Alright. They've just got their flashback cards. They're likely just going to be using Forbidden Alchemy at instant speed. Grabbing another card. Shieldmate doesn't really attack in, so we'll just flip the Howler. Another land for us, not ideal. Get any damage in here at all? I guess one of these hits them. They block the wolf to kill it and let the Howling Chorus in, or they block the chorus and let the wolf in. The only way I actually get some damage in. And if they block and kill the wolf, I'm replacing it with a 3/2 anyway. Yeah, I think attacks are just straight up good here. Because yes, they can eat the wolf for quote-unquote for free, but if they eat the wolf, then the chorus hits them and I just get a 3/2, which is basically just as big as a 3/3 on the board state. So this way I pretty much just get 3 damage in. Or I kill the Wharf Infiltrator. Alright, so they're going to see if they can draw into another instant that costs 2 or less to beat the Howling Chorus. And even if they can't, they were going to cast that anyway, so might as well do it now, just in case they can. Alright, then we'll pass the turn. I've already used the Sage of Ancient Lore, so I don't need to hold any more lands. Is that a second Thing in the Ice? Oh my god, yep, they opened double Thing in the Ice. Well, that's terrifying. There's an Exultant Cultist now. And they are going to kill the token. Need to play 3 instants or sorceries to flip the thing. 2/3 is not attacking in at all on the board anyway. Just hold it in hand still. Ooh, Duskwatch Recruiter is a huge draw. Get our card draw engine going here, dig for some more creatures. Find Sigarda and Audric and Gnarlwood Dryad. I can only pick one of them. Well, I'm pretty sure I gotta pick Sigarda. Then I have a flyer that kills them in 2 attacks. Probably using this ability again, rather than playing Shieldmate. We'll see what they top deck here. They have to hit a lot of spells to flip the thing. They gotta be able to play 3 spells very quickly. Dawngryff, alright, another flyer, let's go! I am all about it. And now they're cheaper to cast because it flipped. Play Sigarda. They know Sigarda's in her hands. They're definitely going to hold the counterspell for Sigarda if they have one. I can get the 1/1s at instant speed with Sigarda's ability. Oh, and I could just use Recruiter again because I played 2 spells here. Recruiter is such a good card, that's ridiculous. Because it fuels its own flipping. Because if you're not going to play spells, you just dump all your mana into it to draw the creatures, and then you play the creatures really cheaply, and then you flip it back and you draw more creatures. Good lord. Alright, well, we have lethal on board. We'll see if it goes through. They do have a Spontaneous Mutation to put on Sigarda to stop all of that damage and just take 2 there. But we're still doing really good with this this Duskwatch Recruiter. So let's make sure to play 2 creatures again so that we flip it and then just draw more creatures. Duskwatch Recruiter is nuts. Oh my god. Alright, so they did hit a flyer to block the Dawngryff. Got 7 mana up here. I can use Recruiter twice. They have 5 blockers total. Block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I could make 4 creatures right now off of Sigarda, it'd be worth it, but I can't, so can't find lethal next turn regardless. Alright, we missed that time. Is it better to draw 1 creature or make 2 1/1s? Probably make 2 1/1s here. Got Mana Sinks galore. Oops, I accidentally shut off Delirium because I'm a doofus. Keep recruiting. If we find Audric, we do win on the spot, so we know Audric is close. Yeah, Audric's in the next set of cards, so just grab Audric, play Audric. Whole board has Flying Hexproof, Death Touch. Yeah, they scoop them up. Wow, well, I knew Duskwatch Recruiter was good, but talk about a dream scenario for that card. Drawing it in a top deck war when each player's just playing off the top keeps you so fueled with creatures, makes the creatures even cheaper to cast after it flips to nighttime. So you just slam them down really easily the next turn, then you flip it back to the ability to just put more creatures in your hand. That was completely absurd. Duskwatch Recruiter, a huge MVP that game, even if Sigarda and Audric were technically what killed our opponent. Just drawing a million cards off of Duskwatch Recruiter and tutoring out those is what really helped us close out that game. So massive MVP to Duskwatch Recruiter. Ridiculous card. We are 2-0 now as we head into Game 3. Here we are on the play for Game 3. Dryad into Priest is a fine way to start it off, and we know what we're doing later with a Sage of Ancient Lore. Definite keeper here against Nasty Poo as our opponent. The name instills fear in me. We have a true adversary today. Alright, let's poke for 1. Drop us a Guardian Priest and pass. Now we're even curving out now because we hit a 3-mana creature to play. We're just going to curve out 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop. Classic Phyrexia, all will be one style. We're actually going to get some value off the Intrepid Provisioner as well, because we can buff the Sigardian Priest attack as a 3-4, which can attack into a 2-2. Depending on what they play here, we might not get a Sigardian Priest attack in, but it's likely I'd be okay with trading off the Priest into something if I make it a 3-4 that turn. Oh yeah, if they play Duskwatch Recruiter, I'm definitely still attacking with Sigardian Priest, because I would like to kill that card. We have seen firsthand how insane that magic card can be. Just one game ago. It is a lot earlier in the game this time, so ideally they don't have the mana to just play around drawing a million cards off of it yet. But we'll see. So right now they are going to take the trade of the Death Toucher into the Hamlet Captain, so we get that out of the way, but they still have a Duskwatch Recruiter on board. Yeah, the nice thing about this is even if they do get value off of Duskwatch Recruiter's ability, it'll be at the cost of them not really playing any creatures this turn. They only have 4 mana total, it'll take 3 mana to use the ability. Card kind of gets scarier the more mana your opponent has up. And right now they don't have a ton. They could use it once, but then they only have 1 mana to play around with. If they just pass the turn, then they can't... I was going to say, yeah, if they just pass the turn here, they can't use it, because then no spells have been cast, and it turns into the 3-3 that does not have that ability. Alright, is it a human on this side? No, it is just a werewolf on the back half. So I could tap it down with Sigardian Priest, but there's not much of a point in doing that. I guess then it can't block Provisioner, but I'm kind of okay trading Provisioner into it. And then just playing the Sage here. But our opponent's probably also okay with trading it off, because again, they're not going to have all the mana in the world to just keep dumping into it. They may be worried about a combat trick, or like the spirit that gives +0/+1 here, though. Oh, we're just going to take it all. Alright, let's drop our Sage of Ancient Lore. Good old 5 mana 2-2, let's go. But it's a 5 mana 2-2 that draws us a card, so that's an incredible deal. You can't tell me otherwise. How much mana would a 2-2 that draws you a card have to cost to be bad? Honestly, 4. I think 4 mana is the cutoff where that's actually not very good. But the Sage is threatening. It gets bigger if I just sandbag my cards and hold them in hand without playing them. It's not actually a 5 mana 2-2 that draws a card. is a lot bigger a lot of the time. It can be smaller. It can die the second it hits the board if it's the last card in your hand. It'll die before you draw the card from its enter the battlefield effect. Ulrich! Oh my god. Spooky. I mean, if they attack, though, they're dead, because I tap down... Oh, I guess I can't tap Ulrich, because Ulrich's a human. Never mind. They could attack there. Would still be kind of sketchy, though. What's the plan here? What's the plan to top deck Audric? It feels like the plan is to top deck Audric. I could tap Crawlin Horde Howler, which would allow me to attack with all of my creatures. They could block and kill the Sage or the Provisioner, but then they'd go down to 3 life. Which is kind of tempting. Probably not super worth it. Because I wouldn't be killing any of their creatures, I'd just be losing a creature. I feel like I would rather just hit them for 2 in the sky, and play some more creatures here. Keep Ulrich from flipping, because if Ulrich flips, Ulrich gets to kill one of my creatures. Fight a non-werewolf. Kill the flyer, so we definitely need to play a spell here at least, no matter what we do. This could be wrong, but I'm going to put them down to 3 here. I feel like if the game goes long, it's pretty bad for me. I want to try to just close this game out as quickly as possible, give them less opportunities to draw into a way to kill the silver or the spectral shepherd. So now it kills them in 2 attacks, and by playing 2 more creatures here, we're relatively likely to kill them in 1 attack. Because I just need to hit them for 1 on the ground. I hit them for 2 in the sky, 1 on the ground. Maybe it was better to just play 1 of those creatures, because then we don't flip the Recruiter and we know we can tap that down with the Priest. Plus, if I only played 1 of the spells, then we would know that we have a non-creature spell to play next turn to keep Ulrich from flipping again. Although I guess... if they play nothing here, they flip Ulrich to kill the Shepherd, then Priest taps one of their blockers, and we still just kill them. Unless they have instants. If they have instant speed removal, they could pass the turn, kill something with Ulrich, and then instant speed removal something. Okay, looks like they don't, because they are still going to play spells. Nothing that blocks in the sky right now. So we put them to 1. I can't kill them here. I could Priest down the Howlpack Wolf, and they have 3 blockers on the ground. They block all 3 of our creatures on the ground. So let's play Noose Constrictor to make sure it doesn't flip. They have to be the one to get it to flip. And then attack for 2. And then I'm going to tap a creature down during their turn and tap a creature down during our turn. They currently only have 1 non-human out, but this way, if they go for the flip Ulrich to kill the flyer play, then I'd still get to tap 2 of their creatures, because I tap a wolf and then I tap one of the werewolves once they're flipped to the backside. Alright, go to combat. Alright, they're going to go for it. They're going to go for the pass the turn, so we'll tap the wolf. Go to our turn. Everything flips. Theirs resolve first, because they go on the stack last. Alright. Ulrich gets to kill something. The alpha doesn't do anything, though. Okay. Fight the Spectral Shepherd. Sure. Recruiter flips. Now our creatures flip. The Sage gets much bigger. And has trample. So that's nice. The Hinterland Logger also has trample. That's... could be important as well. So they need 2 instant speed burn spells to survive. Or an instant speed burn spell and a blocker, or 2 instant speed blockers. If they have a Pack Guardian, I'm going to lose my mind. That card is the bane of my existence for some reason. They'd get a 4/3 and a 2/2 blocker. I guess they wouldn't survive all this trample, though, even if they have Pack Guardian. Yeah. Tap the highest toughness creature to get more trample damage in. They're already dead on board. They already need spells. So there's Moonlight Hunt to shoot that werewolf. Sure. But then they have 2 blockers against 3 attackers still. They need another instant speed spell. So we're trampling over for 1 and hitting for 1. We're putting them to -1 already, so allow that. Uncaged Fury for double strike to prevent the trample, but we still hit for 1 with Gnarlwood Dryad, so allow that. And we do close that game out. We are now 3-0, undefeated so far, as we head into Game 4, guaranteed to get at least a 50-50 run. Here we are in Game 4. This would be our riskiest keep so far. Here we are in Game 4. This would be our riskiest keep so far, if I do keep the hand. There's no guaranteed plays until I hit a Plains. Then there's a Dawngryph on 3, Audric 4, Sigarda on 5. Opponent is on the play, and if I hit some lands, this hand is very high power. I'm gonna keep it. On the draw, I'm gonna keep this. On the play, I think I would definitely mulligan. And even on the draw, I think it's a risky keep. It's a greedy one for sure, but it has pretty high potential. Playing against a red deck here, they started with a turn 1 Terrarian, the mana-fixing artifact. We did hit a Plains, so we know we're going to start with a turn 3 Dawngryph. And our opponent didn't play anything turn 1 or turn 2, so we're not under too much pressure. They are on green-red again. Gnarlwood Dryad is their first play. The 1/1 Death Toucher. I guess their first play was Terrarian, but you know what I mean, the first creature. Do I want to play a Dawngryph, start racing in the sky, or do I want to just drop a courier, get a clue token? Dawngryph curves into Audric better. You know, then my whole board has flying a little earlier. But courier's better if I don't hit more lands, because it'll give me that clue token to try to dig with. I think both are pretty fine. I'll go for the Dawngryph here, though. I'll get a little greedy. We're already greedy this game. What's a little more? And Courier's not like the best backup plan ever, because it's going to be 3 mana to play, and then I'm going to use 2 of my 3 mana to cycle the clue later. We did hit the 4th land. It comes into play tapped, but that's fine. Swift Spinner. That is actually disgusting here. That is the best Swift Spinner I've seen in my life. Unfortunate. Incendiary Flow the Byway Courier, so it doesn't give us a clue token. Not ideal, but it's okay, because we've got 4 mana, they're down to 2 cards, and they're just a 1/1 and a 2/3. So we're not under much pressure. There's the 5th mana for Sigarda. They already spent an Incendiary Flow and a Swift Spinner. I'll just hope they're out of removal. It's not like I'm going to draw removal out with an Audric. I don't think they would kill Audric right now when I have nothing triggering it. It's just a 3/3 by itself. I could have alternatively went for the Pack Guardian blowout on blocks, where I trade a 2/2 Wolf into the Death Toucher and block the 2/3 reach with a 4/3. That would have been fine, but it would have involved discarding the 5th land and not knowing if I could ever cast Sigarda anytime soon. Might have been better, though. Just try to wipe their current board state, rather than building up our own. Question there's really, do I want to play aggressively or defensively? And I chose the very aggressive line, because that's just the kind of player I am. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you'll definitely know that by now I end up drafting a lot more aggro decks than more like controlling mid-rangey or combo-y decks. Just where I am the most at home. Ulrich. That's horrifying, but I do have a Bound by Moon Silver. So we're going to have to chump block with the wolf, most likely. But I can get a free kill on Swift Spinner at least. Actually, they might just be dead. If I draw land, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. With an Audric, I hit them for 10 in the sky. That's not lethal. But it's a lot. I think it's worth keeping the wolf around, just taking 5. I did hit a land, so I can play Audric and Travel Prep. Hit for 12 in the sky. I think I would rather bind the Ulrich and just make sure that doesn't do anything, because then they have nothing. They have a 1/1 Death Touch, and I have a super big board. It's really just like, what are they going to do here, you know? Yeah, this is already such a winning line, and it's much safer, just making sure the Ulrich doesn't get to ever flip and kill anything. Don't have to go for the greedy flying Audric play when I can just shut off their only blocker anyway. Alright, they're digging, sacrificing the Terrarian to draw a card. This will be their last opportunity here to hit an out. They find a Deathcap Cultivator, which does not have flying, so Sigarda is going to fly in for the final 4 damage and find the kill here, so they are going to scoop it up. We are now 4-0. Very much paid off for the greedy keep there just by drawing the lands that we needed pretty efficiently. So pretty lucky game there. Drawing a really powerful hand where the only problem was a lack of lands and just drew into the lands. So some simple magic there. We are now above average. This is where we would be breaking even in a Premier Draft, but because sealed events, you do get 6 packs. You get 9 packs no matter what, the 6 that you build your deck out of, and 3 prize packs. Because of that, it's a lot harder to get your gems back out of the event. It is 2,000 gems to play, and you don't get your 2,000 gems back unless you get 6 wins. So while we would be pretty much breaking even in Premier Draft right now, we're not quite there yet in Sealed. So 4-0 thus far, but really trying to find at least 2 more wins to get all our gems back today. So we'll see how it goes as we head into round number 5. Here we are for game 5. Opponent is on the play. We've got a great hand here. We have Priest on 2. We've got Pack Guardian on 4. We have Sigarda on 5. Now we even have a Duskwatch Recruiter we could play. I don't actually know if I want to play that early, especially against blue-red where they could have a ton of burn spells to kill it. Yeah, I'm just going to play the Priest for now. Try to drag out their burn spells on my weaker creatures before I play Recruiter. And we saw how powerful this card is late game where I just dump all my mana into it and really win any kind of top deck wars. So opponent is firmly on blue-red spells. They start with Ingenious Scab. I feel like it's not valuable enough to hold the Duskwatch Recruiter to hold it over playing literally nothing. Alright, because if I just sit here and try to keep that for playing after I play everything else, I'm not doing anything turn 3. It's probably better to actually do something this turn, even if it does put the Duskwatch Recruiter at risk. Because if it doesn't die here, then we get a really good attack in off Provisioner next turn. Alright. Ooh, and we've got an Audric. Nothing to do with Audric yet, but Audric could give the whole board trample flying later. Yep. Alright. Go Provisioner this turn. We've got a 3/3 to block the Stromkirk cultist, and I'll just let the Ingenious Scab in. I'm not gonna try to figure out if they have any spells in hand to just completely demolish me with Prowess. I'm just gonna assume it's pretty likely that Prowess is going to ruin my life if I try to do anything to the Scab. But on Provisioner, on a cultist, sure, I'll trade into some kind of combat trick or something. Jace's Scrutiny, a phenomenal combat trick though, because it does give them a clue token to draw them a card later. But we already stopped them from drawing a card off a cultist by just blocking it, so feels okay. So here, I think we play Sigarda. Hope to get the Sigarda into Audric line going. Yeah, fingers are a bit crossed here. Probably, if they attack with everybody, we can block the Bloodseeker with our 1/2. Because they can't, like, win combat against it. Okay, Imprison in the Moon is not that big of a deal. Because we're getting a land out of Sigarda, which is still valuable here. We've got 3 4-mana spells in our hand, Guardian, Audric, and Preparations. Obviously, it's a bummer that Sigarda died, but it could have been a lot worse. Could have just been a removal spell where we get nothing out of Sigarda. Okay, that's pretty bad, but thanks to that land they just gave us, we can tap down one of their creatures here. Until the end of your turn, you may play that card, so they can only play it this turn. Okay, I think I'm going to let them get the card off of the Occultist then. Because if it's a non-land card, they just don't get to play it. Oh my god, unless it's a 1-mana removal spell. That was probably the best card in their whole deck they could have hit there. That's devastating. Yeah, I think probabilistically there, the way I was thinking was yeah, statistically speaking, 90% of their cards are just a land or completely useless. Like anything that costs 2 or more mana just gets permanently exiled if they hit us there, so I figured stop more damage that way. Obviously played out horribly, but that was probably one of maybe 2 cards in their deck they could have cast. We've got 6 mana here. I don't have another land for Pack Guardian, so I think I'm going to hold off on that. Let's go Audric Rabid Bites. Kill the Occultist to keep them from drawing more cards, I think. So they sack a clue. They have a second Silent Departure. That is very good. Silent Departure. Super good bounce spell, because they've got 2 more copies of it in their graveyard now. It is sorcery speed, so Pack Guardian could be big. So we go Duskwatch Recruiter, and I can still play Pack Guardian. They'll know we have something here. But they can't be confident as to what. Yeah, so bounce the Duskwatch Recruiter. Attack with everybody. Okay, we definitely need to kill the Scab, so sorry, 4/3 Pack Guardian. But that thing has just been hitting us way too hard. Now they can Silent Departure this token to kill it. And they have 2 Bloodseekers on board we need to deal with. So we play Audric and Duskwatch Recruiter to have more creatures on the board. We have stuff out that can deal with those. If I attack with this wolf, are they still incentivized to bounce the wolf instead of one of my blockers? I think so, because they permanently kill the wolf, so we might be able to get 2 damage in here for free. It feels like taking extra risk for not much payoff, though. Still hold this land in case I draw my Sage, I think. Alright, so now they probably tap out, kill the wolf, attack with both. They can discard a card to trade up into Audric and Duskwatch Recruiter. So I think I let 1 Bloodseeker in. They kill the wolf, I trade Audric into 1, and I let the other one in. Oh, Pyrehound. So they're going to wait on the bounce spell. That way they can get more counters on the Pyrehound. Blessed Alliance. That could be very big. That's 6 mana to do all of the abilities. I have 6 mana here. I want to play a spell during my turn because I don't want Recruiter to flip. But I also want to have as much mana up for a Blessed Alliance as possible. I guess 7 mana, it would make sense to just double Travel Prep and then use Recruiter once. I could also use Recruiter once and then hold 4 mana up for a Blessed Alliance kicked once. Oh yeah, I don't need to triple. I'm not going to untap any creatures. I just need to gain 4 and make them sack a creature. Okay, so I only need 3 mana up, which means I can just go... do this during my turn then. And then pass, let this flip into a 3/3. Ooh, Spectral Shepherd's pretty big on the board. I mean, Death Touch is big too. Well, they're gonna know I have something. If I play one of these. Or if I don't play one of these. They're at 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 9. I'm at 7 life still. I think I pick up Death Touch. Now I actually just play the Dryad and hold up 3 mana. I can still make them sack a thing or gain 4. And this way it's not like super suspicious that I'm holding up Blessed Alliance, and if they don't find a good attack in here, then I can just draw another card off Duskwatch Recruiter. Pour over the pages. Draw 3, untap 2 lands, discard a card. Very good card to hit while empty-handed. We'll give them a lot more spells to play here, especially if they drew into a Madness spell to discard, but they did not, just discard a land there. So at least there's that. Then they have a Wharf Infiltrator. Alright, well, we need to make sure to keep a 1/1 on the board, or that's going to keep hitting us and potentially making 3 2s. We play an Insolent Neonate. It's a little interesting. I wouldn't have been surprised if they just kept that in hand to discard to the Wharf. Alright, they're going to pass through, so we'll draw a card. Get a Noose Constrictor. Sage of Ancient Lore is the draw. 7 mana here. 5 mana to play the Sage. I'll still have 2 mana up for the Blessed Alliance on 1. Could also play the Noose Constrictor and still have 5 mana up for Blessed Alliance on 2, plus Duskwatch Recruiter abilities, if I want to do that instead. I want to hold up the Blessed Alliance pretty badly. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Probably trying to find Audric lethal out of nowhere later in the game just by drawing a flying creature when we get up to 16 power if we can. With travel preparations, we can actually do that pretty well. They're going to bounce the Dryad so that the Wharf Infiltrator can get in, and that the Pyre Hound can be really large here as well because we don't have Death Touch. Send in just the Wharf Infiltrator. Kinda down to just kill that. Kind of down to just kill that. I think I need to gain the 2 as well, though. Okay, now I'm up to 11, which is very helpful. There's a Bound by Moonsilver for the Pyre Hound, and they just straight have nothing. That feels good. That feels phenomenal. Now they've got no attacks, and I just sit here grinding the game out with Duskwatch Recruiter. Probably start turning life totals around, sending in at least the wolf. They have land to discard here to 1-for-1 trade. Yep. Cool with me. Kind of a miniature 2-for-1 trade. We traded into their creature and a land from their hand, but the land wasn't really valuable to them, so not really. Basically just a 1-for-1. But we did trade a token there. Oh my god, give the board lifelink with Audric? Go to town? Good grief. Yeah, don't mind if I do. And now we can just play real simple Magic here. Now I can just travel prep and make sure my board is like unkillable. Alright. Audric Lunarch Marshal MVP. Let's go back to well over 20 life. Well, they'll tap 1 creature with Nebelgast Herald. So let's gain 1,000,000. They're down to 4. We're up to 23. Alright, and they are going to scoop them up. We are now 5-0 in the sealed event. The sealed deck is overperforming so much. Early in the sealed pool, I didn't think it was the greatest sealed pool ever, but once we saw that green-white would work together and put that together, I was like, this deck looks solid, looks decent, but it has been playing phenomenally. We are 5-0, undefeated as we head into round 6, the deciding game to see if we leave with all of our gems intact. Here we are now in game 6 on the draw. We've got a Duskwatch Recruiter early game if we want to drop it down. Probably play the Logger first. Again, try to draw some removal out first because I'm not going to be using Recruiter's ability that soon. Well, ooh, now that I draw into a Noose Constrictor, I kind of want to play that because this isn't a deck that really wants to discard cards to the Noose Constrictor very often, and I want to play something that's big enough to force them to dump mana into the Ember Eye Wolf to trade in. So if they attack in here and I block, they're forced to spend their mana on that instead of playing another creature if they have another creature in hand. So they have to play off curve here. Alright, we do not hit a land here. Yeah, probably just play the Logger past the turn. There we go. We'll hit a land on our 3rd draw. Or that's our 4th draw, I think. Nonetheless, we do get 1 land here, which is nice. Could hold up Blessed Alliance and just kill this patrol. Doesn't seem too necessary. I'll just play a Dawn Griff. Pass. I'll pretty happily trade with that. 3-2. Take 3 damage, we're down to 16. Do hit the 4th land, absolutely beautiful. Probably just play a 3-3 to trade into their 3-3. Don't really want to pack Guardian again till later in the game when I've got the land to discard. So let's set up to trade some 3-3s if they don't have a trick. Grapple with the past. Mill 3, pick up a creature or land. Looks like the best creature is still the 3-2 haste. And they are going to pick that creature up. Replay the 3-2 haste. Rabid Bite, clear shot. Even worse, because that does an extra point of damage to me. Now we're down to 9. And I got a clue token from Briarbridge Patrol's ability. If I pass the turn, this becomes a 3 toughness creature, and Pack Guardian becomes significantly less exciting. They're down to 1 card in hand. Playing a 4-5 might just hold them off. Go for the Thornhide Wolves here. Yeah, dig with the clue token. Play a Shrill Howler, and it looks like the 4-5 is holding them off for now. Nearheath Chaplain is the draw. Can only play 1 spell here no matter what I do. Probably play the Lifelinker and just hold up blockers right now. Could play Recruiter and start using it. Alternatively, that is kind of spicy as well. But at 9 life, I do like getting the Lifelinker out pretty quickly. It's going to be a great creature to trade into any of these. This is going to attack as a 3-5. If they kill the wolves, that's going to be pretty bad for me. If I play Recruiter, I get to hold up Blessed Alliance, which is tempting, so I'm going to try to do that. This way, if they do hit a removal spell to kill Thunderhide Wolves, I can still go block trade, and then make them sack the last creature post-combat. Because you can cast this after combat damage is dealt while the creatures are still technically attacking. You just have to go into full control mode. That was a tip given to me by the YouTube comments. So, big shout out to the YouTube comments for that one, because that might be useful here. If they just flip the Shrill Howler, make it a 3-5, then I just block with wolves. We just bounce off each other. Alright, that's not a nice thing to see. We're going to go into full control mode for that Blessed Alliance shenanigans in case anything happens. We're going to go to blocks now. Maybe it's Uncaged Fury. That would make a lot of sense. Oh, I can only block the Howler with the 4-5. I keep forgetting about that. Yes, they get a good attack in with the Patrol then. Unless I let them hit me with Howler. In which case they can spend the 6 and flip it at instant speed to spit out a 3-2, which feels really bad. I think I need to block there. And then I block there and I keep the Recruiter then. They have Uncaged Fury. I go to 1 life. Okay, so transform the Howler. We resolve that. And then, I guess because I'm not killing the Chorus, the Alliance is going to be worse here. Do I actually just do this pre-combat then? Because now I'm just killing the 3-2 or the 3-3. Basically just as good either way. Stop 3 damage or save the Griff. Yeah, I'll just use it now. So much for the full control special. The only thing I get from doing it later is I make it so they have to sack the chorus or the patrol, and we just guarantee the bandit for Griff trade, but I'm kind of okay with just keeping the Griff if they want to sack the bandit instead. Alright, they do want to sack the bandit instead. We'll go down to 6. The draw is a Drog Skull Shield Mate. Have to play a spell now. If I don't want Recruiter to flip. Also, Pack Guardian is just not that impressive. I think I'm just going to play Chaplain. I don't think I want to block with Recruiter, so I'm going to attack with Recruiter. I guess if I wait, I could play Shieldmate and still use a Recruiter. Right? If I use a Recruiter right now, then don't play anything, it'll flip, and then Shieldmate's only 2 mana next turn. During their turn, I mean. I get to play a creature and use Recruiter in the same turn, which could be valuable. Yeah, sure. And set up a double block on Briarbridge Patrol, single block the chorus. Alright, we just completely miss off Recruiter. Drop the Shieldmate to double block the Briarbridge Patrol. What, it deals damage to 1 or more creatures? Yes, so they only get 1 clue token here, so that's nice. Okay, they kill the flyer, get a clue token. Draw a card. Play a mountain with 3 cards left in their hand. There's got to be something in there. Hopefully whatever it is can't kill a Thornhide Wolves, because then I'm just dead in the water. I do want to play 2 spells. I would like to flip the Howler back, so we'll play Chaplain and Dryad, and I can't block with creatures with less than 3 power, which the Howler's going to be, so I'll attack with all my creatures that won't be able to block anyway. But then I can play Dryad and Chaplain can block the chorus. If the Thornhide Wolves dies, we can get a chump block in. They're down to 9 now. Grapple with the Past is the play. They could pick up a Pack Guardian because it's 4 mana and instant speed and just play it right now, and that'd be pretty nasty here. But maybe there's a stronger creature that they'd rather play at sorcery speed. Yeah, I was going to say I would probably just take Pack Guardian and slam it down right now. Get a big counter. They don't slam it down right now. Interesting. So they pick up the Pack Guardian. I think they had the mana up. Double green and 2 more. Maybe they didn't have an extra land in their hand and they really want to get the 2/2 out of it. Because if they just play a 4/3 and they don't have any removal to follow it up, it's just going to trade into the 1/1 Death Touch anyway. So maybe... we don't know what's in their hand. Maybe they were significantly less excited about the instant speed aspects of the Guardian as I was. And the Alchemist's greeting the Nearheath Chaplain. We no longer have a lifelinker. And now we only have 1 blocker for chorus again. They attack with chorus. We're threatening lethal on the crackback. Threatening exact lethal if they have nothing else in hand, so they gotta have something here. Yep, they've got the combat trick to kill the 4/5. Fair enough. Now I have the land for the Pack Guardian. None of these creatures can block Howling Chorus anyway. I hit them down to 4. My Pack Guardian right now, my Delirium's at 3, which doesn't buff the Dryad, so I don't think there's a reason to do that. If I Chaplain, I could do Chaplain, play the land, use Recruiter. Then I have no blocks for Chorus. I guess Pack Guardian only chump blocks the Chorus, but it can help find lethal. Keep them from getting a 3-2 as another blocker. I think I'm on Pack Guardian here. Actually, I could make 2 1/1s with flying and play the Pack Guardian because it's going to cost 1 less to cast, but then I wouldn't be discarding a land, so I wouldn't get a 2-2 wolf, so we'd have to decide, are 2 1/1 flyers better than 1 2-2 wolf? When our opponent's at 4, probably. But I can get both if the game lasts a little while. I'm going to try to get both. Plus this way we're getting a land engrave for Delirium on Gnarlwood Dryad if we hit an instant or sorcery, or if we hit a sorcery specifically, I suppose. And the Dryad gets buffed. I guess I could alternatively have drawn a card off of this and then still played Pack Guardian, but again, it wouldn't be giving me the 2-2 wolf. So opponents at 4 life, we know they have 2 blockers minimum. 3 if they hit me. Yeah, I mean, if I let this in, they have another blocker anyway. I think I'm going for the chump on it. What do they have here? I mean, we know they have Pack Guardian, that's 2 blockers. Block, block, take 3. Oh, this is a sorcery, so it'll buff the Dryad naturally? So I make everything 3 power? Everything has 3 power attack in? Alright, they're gonna scoop them up. Yeah, so I think the line I'm going for there is try to make everything on the board 3 power, so they need to have definitely more than Pack Guardian to survive, but then still hold up the Nearheath Chaplain in case something really wrong happens. Then I can still have 2 chump blockers for the 4-3 and the 2-2. I can't chump block the Chorus, but I could chump block those on a crackback. Just take the Howling Chorus damage. Alright, pretty nasty stuff. Great travel preparations off the top. That was actually incredible on that board state. Turning a 3 power creature, a 2 power creature, a 1 power creature, and another 2 power creature into 4 3 power creatures. Because it was my first sorcery for Delirium. My forced sorcery. Yeah, really great travel prep off the top. And we had the mana up to do the Chaplain afterwards to have some chump blockers. Super nice stuff from the deck. Duskwatch Recruiter and MVP again, as always. Pack Guardian doing some decent stuff there. Getting us a block on the Chorus and another attacker for next turn. And there we have it. We are 6-0, undefeated, leaving with all of the gems that it took to enter the event in the first place. And maybe even more. We've got 3 attempts at getting a 7-win run today. So let's get them started. Let's head into the final boss. Alright, here we are in Game 7. A bit of a slow hand here, but turn 3 Shrill Howler is pretty tempting. We have a great 3 mana, 4 mana, and 5 mana card. Audric not very good in the hand currently. But we have a lot of cards we can draw into that would make it pretty nasty. Noose Constrictor is one of them. Doesn't make it incredible, but does make it so if Noose Constrictor is still around when we play Audric, we'll have all kinds of reach creatures to be able to block flyers. Okay, there's our 5th land. Don't really need more than 5 mana, so I'm kind of okay discarding the 5th land to kill the Cathar here if they go for a block, which they do not. Play the Shrill Howler now. Now a Dauntless Cathar from our opponent. That's a great blocker for the Howler. It has high enough power to trade into it, and then they can get a Spirit out of it later. So not what I like to see there. Another land. We definitely have some expendable stuff for the Noose Constrictor. Don't think we have particularly good attacks. Constrictor attack would be fine. I really don't want to trade Howler into Cathar, though. I feel like Constrictor's just better on blocks. Discard 1 card to kill their Cathar. They're Steadfast Cathar, not the Dauntless Cathar. And if we top deck a flyer, then we just go to town with Audric. I believe it's 6 mana to flip the Howler? Yeah. So we might have some value. Or find some value just holding these lands. Ooh, Angelic Purge, sacking a land to exile Audric. Okay, keep them off some mana. I'm okay with that. Unless I immediately top deck a flyer, then I'll be a little bit sad, but... that was a very real cost to casting that Angelic Purge. Rabid Bite is a great draw. Is it better to just play a 4/5? Or to Rabid Bite one of these so I can get Howler attacks in? It's probably better to play the 4/5. My deck doesn't have a lot of removal, so if I just use it really aggressively to guarantee that I get some damage in here, some really bad things could happen if my opponent plays their own Balmy card. We only have like a Rabid Bite and a Bound in Moonsilver. Yeah, we can Rabid Bite that thing. 3/2 Menace, and they keep flipping the top card of my library and dealing damage. The top card of their library. Dealing damage to me. Yeah, that seems decent enough to bite that. Although I probably want to attack with Howler first and see what happens. Honestly, at 18 life, for now, I could just shoot myself in the face a little bit. Do they have good blocks for a 3/5? Double block with 2 3/2s? Yeah, that's actually decent. We probably don't attack with the Howler yet then. So I'm going to go near Heath Chaplain so I can gain life off the Rabid Bite. Be extra fancy. And do I let them trade both their cards into the Wolves? Sure, it clears the board for the rest of the squad. And in order for them to get more value off the Dauntless Cathar, they need to spend 2 mana to get a 1/1 flyer, and they're still stuck on 3 because they had to sack their 4th land. Alright, Sigardian Priest. Don't love that, but it can't do anything yet. I'm pretty okay trading Chaplain with anything right now. I actually probably send in everybody. Honestly. Full aggro, full send. Alright, trade, deal a bunch and get a 3/2, looks like. Yep, they're at 7 life. We get a 3/2, clear out 2 of their creatures. But I can get some more flyers from the grave later. I'm going to hold this in hand if we draw into our Sage that wants us to have cards in hand. So they're down to 7. They have found their 5th land, but since they sacked one earlier, it's just their 4th on board. They have a Sigardian Priest to keep tapping the Howling Chorus now. They have a Steadfast Cathar. That is good enough to trade into the 3/2. If I bound by Moonsilver either of those creatures, I have lethal on board. I'll choose the Cathar, because if I bind the Priest, it can keep using its ability every turn anyway. I guess if they tap Thornhide Wolves, we put them to 1, but we get another 3/2. Yeah. We basically have lethal on board, because they want to tap the one that keeps giving me 3/2s, but if they choose to tap that one, then they die on board, so they have to tap Thornhide Wolves, which means they take 6, and I get another 3/2 Eldrazi Horror, and then I make 2 1/1 flyers post-combat. Not a super winnable position for them unless they have a board wipe in their deck, so they are going to scoop it up, and there you have it. Excellent run through the sealed event today. That is a 7-0 undefeated run. Really good deck that's performed way better than I even thought it would. Just a really consistent deck here. Super consistent curve of creatures. Some pretty great non-creature cards. We never got to play Griff's Boon, but it would have been pretty nice in almost any of those games. Just turning anything into a flyer would have been great, and being able to recast it from the grave later was awesome. Sage of Ancient Lore was probably the biggest underperformer, but it was still pretty scary in 1 or 2 of those games. Drew some removal out from our opponent the one time it did flip, and it was always a decent value play. So that wasn't horrible, it just wasn't quite as good as I thought the card was. Sigarda performed very well, but I already thought she would. Audric was probably the biggest overperformer. I thought Audric was going to be pretty risky, because most of the time Audric's going to sit there doing nothing, but turns out we just had enough flyers, or just drew them luckily enough, like often enough, that Audric did a lot of work. Just giving your entire board flying or lifelink is such a huge swing in the game that it kind of makes up for the times where you don't draw a creature to work with Audric, and often, I guess not often today, we only played 7 games, but in one of those games where we didn't have anything fancy to do with Audric, Audric still pulled a removal spell out of our opponent's hand, got them to cast an Angelic Purge on Audric because they just know what could happen if we end up casting a flyer later. So they kind of preemptively play it safe, get rid of the Audric, and that forced them to use an Angelic Purge, got them off of their mana. So even when we didn't get any Audric combos off, Audric was pretty great. The Spectral Shepherd and Dawngryff were pretty big overperformers. They look very mediocre up front, but with Audric in the deck, they were incredibly helpful. And even when we didn't get Audric, there were a couple games where just having 2/2 flyers were nice. There was one game, though, where the 2/2 flying body was pretty bad. That was against, I think, the Green-Red Werewolves deck in round 5 or 6, something like that. The Dawngryff just wasn't helping us out very much on blocks. So that kind of averages it out, makes it more of your average card. Other than that, yeah, everything did its job, did about as much work as I thought. Duskwatch Recruiter was definitely more powerful than I thought it was, but I already thought it was tremendously powerful. But then, wow, when we started popping off with that card, it was unstoppable. This was a pivotal card in many of our victories. This card is absurd, and I would draft it and play it very, very highly. And if you open it up in your sealed pool, pretty good reason to try to be in green if you have the support for it. So Duskwatch Recruiter was another pretty big overperformer. So that was everything in the deck. Pretty sure we got to play every other card. We just didn't get to play the Griff's Boon. So those were my opinions on all the cards that we played that were huge over or underperformers. Travel Preparations was great, but I already knew it was great, so that was to be expected. Just performed as I imagined. Yep, that's pretty much it. Everything in the deck just popping off on all cylinders. So we'll grab our prizes here, grab our 2,200 gems, our 3 extra booster packs of Shadows Over Innistrad Remastered, and that will be the end of today's sealed event and the end of today's video. If you enjoyed that video and you'd like to see more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you more of these videos in your recommended feeds. If you'd like to hang out with me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.